Okay, kia ora tātou. Welcome everybody to the meeting of the Transport Committee. This 26th of February 2019. Is that better? You can hear? Can everybody in the public gallery hear? Louder. Are we able to turn up the volume?
That's on the highest setting.
It's on the, apparently the volume is at the highest setting, and I'm speaking fairly closely into the mic. Is that better? It's not turned on.
It's turned on, sir.
Okay, apologies, that's all we can do in terms of the volume in the public gallery. So if we can proceed, so I'd like to welcome members, particularly external members to this meeting today, members of the public, and I know there's a number of people here to support the petition regarding the Greerton Roading project, so I'll welcome you all along. Also welcome some members supporting Carol Gordon in terms of the public transport issues affecting the elderly. First up, I've got apologies, and we have apologies from Councillor Thurston, and he's been represented by Councillor Crosby of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and also an apology from Alistair Talbot, our NZTA representative, and he is replaced by Rob Campbell, NZTA. So we've got also three other members, Councillor Mike Williams, Councillor Catherine Stewart and Councillor Max Mason, with apologies. If I can ask somebody to move those.
Councillor Stewart is a leave of absence, is it not?
That's right. So Councillor Stewart is a leave of absence, so if I can get someone to move that, moved by Councillor Clout, seconded by Councillor Granger, I'll put that, all those in favour. Against, that's carried. Now, public forum, I've been asked by Mayor Brownless to bring forward the speaker regarding the Coolum Park redevelopment, Mr. Peter Hayward. So Peter, if you're ready, if you can come up to the podium and present. Welcome, Peter. So there's a button in the centre of that microphone, or either way, stand or sit. Hit that button in the centre and move the mic very close to you so the members in the public gallery could hear, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to express my opinion regarding the proposed redevelopment of Coolum Park. My name is Peter Hayward, and I'm a resident of Beach Road, living just a few hundred metres from Coolum Park in the direction of Ferguson Park. I moved to Beach Road about a year ago, so missed the period of consultation undertaken regarding the redevelopment of Coolum Park, and I first became aware of the proposed design plan when it was displayed in the park on the temporary fencing in place around the area where the beach wall had been washed out. On investigation, it appears there has been significant consultation during the design stage, input from experts and iwi, at least 2 open days, and in excess of 240 submissions received by council. Furthermore, it appears that feedback has been listened to, with compromises to the initial concepts made where appropriate, allowing for differing points of view, and that the project was due for commencement in early 2019. I was pleased with the outcome of the process. The major objectives to develop and expand the park's facility and make it accessible and safe appeared to have been brought together well in a well thought out plan. As a frequent user of the park, mainly for walking and cycling, I recognised that the main objective to achieving this was the separation of vehicles from pedestrians to create a pleasant and, more importantly, safe environment for all to enjoy the existing and planned facilities. By removing vehicles to the rear of the park, this is achieved and frankly obvious. However, I would suggest that all car parks be on the park side of the access road, not on the railway side. This would move them further away from any passing trains, which understandably are scary to some, and allow access from parked cars straight onto the grass, safer for families and young children than having to come back over the access road to get to the park. By having the car parks perpendicular rather than angled to a slightly wider access road, those who want to stay in their cars can view the park and the harbour and mount beyond from their vehicles. On visiting the park many times over this summer, this already appears to be a favourite place for cars to park as they receive shade from the existing trees. It should be possible to position the access road between the trees and have car parks along the length of the road. A maximum number of 30 spaces and 5 freedom camping spaces would seem appropriate here. Furthermore, additional overflow spaces for special events could be placed on the podium area in front of the existing boat ramp. The existing road could remain as a shared access for pedestrians and cyclists, or reformed as the design plan, which I understand may be necessary to implement the drainage requirements. The walkway from the Maxwell's Road end of Harbour Drive all the way along the harbour front to Ferguson Park must be one of the most beautiful and most used paths in Tauranga. Ironically, the only part of this walkway where pedestrians and bicycles have to share with cars is within Coolin Park, an area where all should be able to play and enjoy the views without worrying about their children being knocked down or cars trying to push past from behind. As a resident of Beach Road and frequent user of the harbour walkway, I would be pleased to see a coordinated approach to vehicle, bicycle and pedestrian use along the entire waterfront. The effect of removing waterfront parking within Coolin Park will inevitably lead to an increase in car parking on the grass berms between the pavement and roading in Harbour Drive and Beach Road. In order to protect these grassed areas and ensure safety and enjoyment of the walkway and harbour by all, additional designated parking and restriction to cars parking on the grass is needed, in conjunction with the Coolin Park redevelopment. Fortunately, recent actions and planning by this council relating to the use of our green spaces recognise the need to prioritise pedestrian and cycle use over that of the car, as is now a worldwide approach in the 21st century. Apart from the suggested change to the car parking layout to the rear of the car park, which I mentioned earlier, I endorse the proposed Coolin Park redevelopment design plan and urge the council to move forward with the works during 2019. Furthermore, I would conclude that a good consultative process has been followed and would be disappointed if a couple of objections at this late stage would unnecessarily delay the redevelopment proceeding. I'll be pleased to be involved in any further consultation, as I understand that an independent expert is now being employed to review the design plan, and I'd also be pleased to receive any questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Questions from the members? No questions. I think that was very clear, and we are glad to hear that you're willing to participate in the review. Exactly what the scope of that review is, I don't think we're that certain, but I understand they are going to undertake a fairly comprehensive sort of review of the, well, more so of the public input, which I understand was a bit short-circuited at one stage.
Okay, yeah, I'll be pleased to be involved in that. So
right. Thank you, Peter. Mayor Brownless.
Yeah, just wondering if Peter can give us a copy of his written submission, is that all right? And with a contact address to make sure that he is talked to when we actually get to that stage of sorting it out.
Yeah, can I email it to you?
Yes, if you could email it to my email address. Yep. And I'll pass it on. Yeah,
just to let you know also that I am, I've got construction, I'm from a construction background, if that's of any help at all in the process. Yeah. No.
Since we had that first presentation saying that the community weren't that happy with the project, have we had other feedback as well?
Is there anybody here? Mark Smith.
Good afternoon. Through the chair, we have, since the newspaper article, we have received 6 further statements from the public in support of basically what Peter's saying the project's okay, we like it, and one that was non-committal in either way. So 7 further inquiries.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, and thanks once again, Peter. You've got a final comment to make?
Nope.
No?
That's good. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Next up, we have Peter Brown regarding the e-bike highway. Philip Brown. Welcome, Philip. Come on up. You can either stand at the podium or take a seat if you're more comfortable.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Philip Brown, and I'm the president of the Papamoa Residents and Ratepayers Association, or PRRA. I graduated as a traffic and roading engineer many years ago, and have always maintained an interest in traffic problems and their solutions. Recently, at one of our association's regular monthly public meetings, it was devoted to traffic issues in Papamoa, and in particular we discussed the extra traffic volumes expected from the Tutumu development and the inadequacy of the current Papamoa roading network to handle this now and in the immediate future. And then we moved on to the choking road connections from Papamoa to the rest of Tauranga. Another recent PRRA speaker presented the idea that Tauranga is now full. The roading infrastructure is at its maximum peak capacity, and further development will choke the roading network, resulting in increases in travel times. His final comment was, "Bigger is not always better," and he may be right. If you want to read what is presented in PRRA meetings, it is all online on our website under the meetings section. That's the advertisement. Now go back to today's topic. I presented this concept, is there a new public transport paradigm here now, at a PRRA meeting for the first time some months ago. It is still relevant and worthy of being promoted and shared more widely. It is based on a Papamoa perspective, but can easily be expanded to all of Tauranga. The cost of public transport using buses in communities of less than 400,000 people will always be very onerous, require large ratepayer subsidies, and probably doesn't work very well. Personal transport is the mode of choice and the only one that works. Tauranga is a good example of this. However, more people equals more cars, equals more congestion, equals longer travel times, equals reduction in the enjoyment of living here. So now we move on to, is there a new public transport paradigm here? Right, motorists will only step out of their cars when the transport alternative is cheaper, the travel time is similar or less, greater inconvenience, and we're doing that by making parking difficult. Traffic jams make travel times inconsistent and difficult to plan your day. We already experience slowdown and choke points in our local roading network on the way to downtown and the Mount. The 2-lane bridge on the Motor Causeway near Mangatapu, the stuff up at Hairene, 3 lanes into one is a traffic mathematical impossibility. First shown in Auckland when they tried to connect the southern, the southwestern, and the Manukau City on-ramp going south. I think that was 5 into 2. That was even worse. The narrow 2-lane bridge into 15th Avenue and the overloaded Hewlett's Road. And remember, I'm talking from a Papamoa perspective here. With more residents in Papatoa East and Tutumu, it is only going to get worse. Use the bus, says the Tauranga City Council. Too slow. Buses use existing roads, and the subsidy is too expensive on our rate. The new public transportation solution is e-bikes. They're almost free to run. There's no sweating with the right model. You can wear your work clothes on the cycle to work. Easy parking. Flexible timetable, go where you like, when you like. Fast. Work best on flatter terrains. No registration, or insurance at present. But I hear you say the roads are dangerous and overloaded. I agree. I hate riding on them. I use the footpath. So let's create an e-bike highway between Papamoa and downtown, Papamoa and Mount Maunganui. A highway which will be independent of major roads, not on the sides of roads, completely separate, safe, no lanes taken away from the roads. Travel times will be equivalent or better than travel times in a car. The distances we are talking about are within easy range of an e-bike. This e-bike highway will use the railway reserve and run alongside the railway lines and the TEL. So this is just the idea of where we'd like to go. And to quote Phil Twyford, railway corridors now have an economic and a social value. This is the social value of a railway corridor. This is just a superposition out by where they're building the new main freight depot. You can see the state highway up there. The blue is the cycle lane. The road down the bottom is Truman Lane. All we're asking for, 2.5, 3 metres wide, nothing major. So Tauranga has the opportunity to try something new as a public transport solution and become a leader in alternative urban solutions. The terrain is mostly flat, low cost to build, in fact very low cost, and lower cost to the user. No need to toll, future-proof, railway reserve is there and available, safe to users, away from other traffic. And the benefits for the residents of Papamoa and Te Tumu, quick access to downtown. Motorists will get out of their cars to e-bike. That will free up a car space for another car, but at least we've got somebody out of a car. In the future, the e-bike highway can continue along the side the Tauranga Expressway with multiple connections to the new subdivisions. Linked to downtown using Matapihi Road and the Harbour Railway Bridge. Another link to Mount Maunganui and the Hewlett's Road area. So if we just dream a little, people will have lots of problems, but let's dream that it all works, and this is what we get, instead of the bottom picture. Is this idea a goer? Is it too simple? Will it work in Tauranga? Think of how and not bring up roadblocks. I think we have an opportunity to put this in place for a very low cost and become leaders in urban transportation in New Zealand. And then let's perhaps connect Omokarawa, although that's happening now, and Welcome Bay. And all for a fraction of the cost of 1 year's rate charge for public buses. And best of all, no carbon content. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. We have questions. A question from Councillor Baldock and then Councillor Cloud.
Thanks, Philip. That's very interesting. You said that the rail corridor is available. Have you had confirmation of that from Kiwi Rail? Have you had any communication with them?
I've had no communication with Kiwi Rail, no.
Oh, that would be the kind of I won't call it a problem, but that would be the issue as to whether they would share that land with us.
Well, as Phil Twyford has been on record saying there is a social value to railway corridors now, and he's brought up similar things to this recently.
Yeah, we're aware of ministers making all sorts of comments at times, so we would have to see that confirmed by Kiwi Rail, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Cloud, followed by Councillor Molloy.
Thank you very much, Philip. A couple of questions. First of all, how do you propose to cross State Highway 29 along your e-highway, which I actually agree with, by the way. I think it's a fantastic
Okay, well, once again, this is broad brush, no details. You know, there are options.
Thank you.
Bridges, but you know, there's no detail on this. We're at the high level, getting a concept idea.
Okay. That's fine, thank you. And my other question is, have you had any consultation with iwi and hapu in the Matapihi Peninsula in particular?
No, I've done nothing of this. We're still at broad brush.
Okay.
It's just
because that'll be something that we do need to do.
Well, there's always the road
in quick order. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Before Councillor Malloy, just for your information, Councillor Cloud, there is actually an existing underpass close to that point on your map where you're going to cross State Highway 29. It's to access the property there, but you'd have to consult quite closely with the owner of that, but it's there and it's a good quality underpass. Councillor Malloy, followed by Councillor Granger. Councillor Granger.
Hey, thanks, Philip. Can we go back to where you showed the motorists will step out of their cars? Just those, I think you had about 6 points there.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. So the point that's missing, and you touched on that later, was the safetiness. So in other words, you feel that the roads as we've got them at the moment are certainly not safe for any cyclist to get on board, and all the cycle tracks in your mind should be separate to roading.
The ideal solution is to have them separate. I believe if we got the volume of cycling that I envisage, no shared cycle lanes we have at the moment alongside roads would be able to handle the volume safely. A lot of the cycle lanes we're building out in the Papamoa area now, particularly on Te Okaroa Drive, are separated from the roads, but expect the cyclists to get off at each roundabout. They can't cycle straight through. So I don't think we're quite doing it right at the moment.
So the point I want to make here is that could you visualise maybe in the future of, and it all comes back to costs as well, as regards to widening some of our pedestrian and footpaths, so sort of include the cyclists as well, so we can combine the both?
The answer could be yes. This route that I have shown here is nice in that it's unobstructed and continuous. Where cyclists have to intersect with roads, then you have the usual problems of cars and cyclists. Yeah. I don't know the exact answer to what we need to look at the whole picture. Yeah.
Councillor Morris.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair. G'day, Philip. Thanks for coming in. Just hearing some of the conversation here through you, Mr. Chair, would it be possible for Council to quickly just find out from Kiwi Rail what their position is on the rail network within Tauranga and potential use for things like cycleways? I know, despite Minister Twyford being Minister of Transport, I note that Kiwi Rail charge an arm and a leg to Christchurch City Council for the use of that rail corridor, but I think Philip is asking for Council to show a bit of leadership and ask the question of Kiwi Rail. So I think if we could do that through you, Mr. Chair, right.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. We have mental block. Martin Parks.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Look, we've got contacts. Through you, Mr. Chair, we have contacts at Kiwi Rail. We'll take that up with them and ask them that general question. I know they have concerns around safety with regards to people being close to rail tracks, so they do have a safety sort of space that requires to be kept clear, but we'll ask the question anyway.
Mayor Brownless.
Yeah, can I just ask that that be put in writing to Kiwi Rail along with a CC to Minister Twyford, because I know Philip isn't looking for roadblocks, and if roadblocks do come, I don't want it to be this council that is doing the roadblocks. So I think if we get the answer in writing, and that will that's a good point. Otherwise, it will seem, if things get too difficult, oh, easy to blame council again, and that's not the case. We're very interested. Let's put it in writing and see what the answer comes back as.
Philip, this council has approved 100 million in the 10-year plan, so it indicates our support for investigating cycleways. There's a presentation at the end of the last item of this meeting relating to a trip to Christchurch to investigate what good stuff's been happening there. And I myself use the Marapihi cycleway, and it's becoming congested. Believe it or not, it's a highly utilised cycleway, but very narrow in certain sections, so we do understand the need for a good quality separated cycleway to attract cyclists.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
Next up we have Les Wallen, He's speaking about the Greerton roading improvements, if we can refer to it as that. Welcome, Les. So the microphone is on. Turn it around to fairly close to you so the members of the public can hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, councillors and ladies and gentlemen, I could suggest from sitting back there that you might need to improve the sound system in here. It doesn't work very well. I would like my comments to be received in relation to item DC6, which I believe you are receiving later on. And I just want to take a couple of minutes to set a stage for what I want to say. In recent years, in 2 separate twin-engine aircraft accidents during takeoff, the pilots, fearing that they had a problem in an engine, feathered the propeller on that engine, meaning they put it in neutral, and they then proceeded to incorrectly shut down the remaining good engine, leaving the aircraft with no power. In both cases, the aircraft crashed and burned, killing all on board. 4 people lost their lives. Analysis of the accident showed that on one, the oil cap was loose, spraying oil onto the turbocharger, generating large amounts of smoke, causing the pilot to make the incorrect assumption that he had a problem, that he had an engine fire. In actual fact, he had no problem at all with his aircraft. All he had to do was complete his circuit, land again, and refit his oil cap. In the second accident, a senior flight instructor was told by the control tower that she had something looking like smoke coming from her starboard engine. Again, she incorrectly diagnosed that she had an engine fire and feathered that propeller. And as in the first case, she then proceeded to incorrectly shut down the remaining good engine, and the aircraft spun into the ground, killing her and her student. Analysis of the accident showed that her wing fuel cap had not been fastened correctly, and fuel was being sucked out of the starboard wing tank, creating a mist over the wing, which looked like smoke. In actual fact, she again had no problem at all. The aircraft was fine and functioning in all respects. All she had to do was complete her circuit, land again, and refit her fuel cap. So as a result of incorrectly diagnosing the problem at hand and applying an incorrect solution to the problem, 4 people died and 4 families were left in ruins. That student had the right to believe that he was in good, safe hands, as the instructor was second in seniority and experience at a major airport in Brisbane. Sadly, his trust, Mr. Chairman, was misplaced. The ratepayers of Tauranga also have the right to believe that their money and the efficient running of this city is in good, safe hands. Sadly, they are wrong too. When considering the recent roadwork in Greerton, which I cannot and will not refer to as road improvements, an analysis of the result shows a complete disaster. You have applied the wrong solution to a problem that you never had, and you have crashed and burned. What the local businesses asked for was traffic lights on the original pedestrian crossing to prevent pedestrians from willy-nilly walking out in front of the traffic and holding up the traffic unnecessarily and endangering themselves. You were asked, you were begged, you were told, do not move the crossing closer to the roundabout. That's all it was, folks. Lights on the pedestrian crossing, nothing more. Did you listen? Did you listen? No, you didn't. You interpreted that. And excuse my theatrics. Whiskey Delta Golf, this is Archer Tower. Sir, you have got something that looks like smoke coming from your starboard wing. And instead of correctly diagnosing that there was no actual problem caused at Greerton, it comes from Parks Corner, and circling to land to ascertain what the actual problem was so that you could apply the correct fix, traffic lights on the original pedestrian crossing, somehow you managed to turn that simple request on behalf of the businessmen and the motorists of Greerton into approximately a $3 million safety issue about pedestrians. You feathered the wrong engine, people. Now congestion backs up all the way north to Mega 10 and beyond. The congestion and added problems become self-compounding. I see in your agenda today a proposal to look at speed bumps or traffic calming on Manson Road in Greerton to slow down the scud runners trying to avoid the disaster created at Cameron Road. This is more time and money that you will spend in this room considering how to fix the problem that you created. 4 people died because of my pilot's errors. In our case, ladies and gentlemen, our crash has caused many deaths. It has closed businesses. There have been serious loss of profits for the businessmen in Greerton. There is no foot traffic past the shops on the service station side of Cameron Road. The centre median strips prevent motorists, despite their best efforts, moving out of the way of emergency vehicles, which they could do before. Fire trucks, ambulances and police are blocked, prolonging their time to get to an emergency. As testified by Mr. Martin Quaife, senior firefighter at the Taronga Fire Station. Martin, would you stand, please? Thank you, sir. That's so you know that I'm speaking with Mr. Quaife's authority. Martin says that these type spaces and lack of safe options available are not just limited to commuter times, but can be encountered throughout the day. Subsequently, these combined factors have impacted hugely and negatively on the overall safety in Greerton. So much for these works, supposed to be about safety. We have the installation of another laundromat, for goodness sake, within 50 metres of the first. We have empty shops, we have less car parks, and we have more trees. You are turning Greerton people into a slum. We have the most dangerous situation on Chadwick Road with the new pedestrian crossing so close to the roundabout. I myself almost hit a woman there. As I entered the roundabout, I was checking my right-hand traffic, and when I looked back, there she was, right in front of me. This is the closest I have ever personally come to killing somebody. I would have been to blame at law, not you, and not her, me. So much for making things safer. The logic of putting a pedestrian crossing this close to a roundabout is incomprehensible, and I believe it is illegal. Several semi-trailers pulling up at the roundabout, and I witnessed one yesterday, have their trailers back over the pedestrian crossing, so people can't walk across the pedestrian crossing anyhow. I understand this situation to be illegal, but I stand to be corrected on this point. Like the pilots in my example, you have applied an incorrect solution to a non-existent problem, and the result is disaster. We demand the right turn from Cornwall Street to be reinstated immediately. The traffic on the Chadwick Road roundabout has increased by at least a factor of 10. At the same time, you reduced that roundabout's ability to handle the traffic by over 75%. Please excuse my mixing of mathematical metaphors. That's not my strong point. People from all parts of Greerton and the city now avoid shopping there and turn left from Kent Street to shop at Gate Park, as it is now at times impossible to turn right into Cameron Road from Kent Street to go to Greerton. Or they go left and go down Courtney Road to Fraser Cove. You have successfully, as a council, strangled the city heart with your idiotic improvements, and now you are killing Greerton and turning it into a slum like Maryvale. Understand that once the people leave an area, they don't come back. Mr. Mayor, councillors, we have all died in this crash. The question is, what are you going to do about it? There is real anger out there directed at you. Make no mistake. Don't ignore what I am saying. You are going to feel this at the election. What do we want? We want our road back. This is the main highway from south of the Kaimai and Rotorua to Auckland and Wakatani and every other point. We need it open to the travelling public and all emergency vehicles at all times. There needs to be a recognition that Tauranga is a major city in New Zealand and Greaton is a major suburb within this city. It is not a village anymore, and we have to get rid of this village mentality. My pilots were responsible to those who employed them. They made bad decisions and it cost them their lives. They can no longer make the same mistake again, but you can, and you do, all over this city. Now I read in Saturday's paper, according to the Acting General Manager of Infrastructure, Martin Parks, that the works were not aimed at addressing traffic congestion, as traffic congestion is common across the city. The arrogance of this statement is absolutely unbelievable. And if he worked for me, he would be instantly fired. And it proves just how incompetent and out of touch Mr. Parks is. It is okay, according to him, to create traffic congestion in Greaton because congestion is common across the city. Let's send him to Auckland, he can help them. He says this is the second worst location for accidents in Tauranga. And the Bay of Plenty Times reports...
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
We have a point of order from Councillor Baldon.
Yeah, Les is a very good speaker, but you as chair should not allow him to attack our staff personally in this setting. I would ask you, sir, to please refrain, but the chair will have to do that, not myself. But this is not a place where people can personally attack staff. They can't defend themselves. Mistakes may have been made, but you should ask him to refrain from that, please, sir.
Yes, I let it go because I was waiting if it occurred again, but yeah, I think we got the message. Thank you, and if you can wind it up, Les, it would be appreciated. We do certainly hear what you're saying.
Yep, I won't be very much longer, Mr. Chairman. I just got to find where I was. This gentleman says that it is the second worst location for accidents in Tauranga, and the Bay of Plenty Times reports it is one of the most dangerous locations in Tauranga. Information, I believe, supplied by the gentleman referred to. The public say to him and to you, prove it. These accidents are what Donald Trump calls fake news, if not a blatant lie. A resident of Chadwick Road for over 40 years says, and I quote, "We are always being told about these accidents. They don't exist. The only accident I remember, apart from some minor bumps which happen everywhere, was a woman whose foot slipped off her brake and onto her accelerator, and she cannoned across the traffic island in the middle of the roundabout and into the stone wall in front of the liquor store. Nobody was hurt." The police in Greaton have been asked for details on these accidents, and they don't have any. Another resident rang me and said, "I've been here for 10 years. I do not remember any of these accidents." And again, Martin Quaife, our senior firefighter present, when he rang me, he said, "We as firefighters go to all accidents, regardless of how big or small they are. We discussed this in the fire station, and no one can remember these being referred to with regard to Greaton. We would remember them if they had happened, and they would have been logged in our shift reports. I would suggest that the fact that nobody can remember these accidents is because they in fact don't exist. They are fake news to justify a point of view being trafficked around." I won't refer to his name again. Constantly building insane solutions for non-existent problems that nobody wants is theft of public money, Mr. Chairman, and it borders on criminal negligence. Yes, you have the authority under law, but you do not have the moral right to waste ratepayers' money like this, and it has got to stop. Councillors, my pilots died for their mistakes, so what are you going to lose as a consequence of your bad decision making? This can't go on, and nothing happens as it has for all these years. Do you care? It's not your money you're spending. You can't be held personally responsible, can you? Well, I want to tell you, Mr. Chairman, that my name is Pastor Les Wallen, and I, in the name of Jesus, on behalf of those 695 signatures that you will be looking at, and untold others who could not sign, am holding you responsible. What do we want? We want our road back, as it was, or we want your resignations, and then we will get our road back. To our new Chief Executive, I say to you, sir, that you are immune from my remarks. And in your efforts to turn this council around, you could start with sacking the entire advisory committee that advises you on these roadworks. And get some people with vision and common sense who can guide this council and who can lead this city into the future without having to constantly put out self-created bushfires, such as Manson Road. Councillors, the feeling out there is God help us all if any of you are involved in the 15th Avenue improvements. I read in the paper that Councillor Steve Morris is talking about 15th Avenue, saying we are pushing to get at least 3 lanes. Lord, save us from such small-minded thinking. Councillor Morris, your starboard engine has stopped, and you are about to feather the wrong propeller. Will the people of this city live or die? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Les and supporters. Questions from the members? Councillor Granger.
Les, come up to the microphone. I can see the whites in your eyes there. Perhaps a little redness as well. First of all, I want to congratulate you for coming in. I know it takes someone like yourself quite a bit of gumption to do that, so I do congratulate you for what you did. I do want to make the point here, and I will. I don't think it was appropriate that the other councillor, Councillor Portlock, should have a point of order when this gentleman is from the public and he's stating, and sometimes they do get a little emotional, Mr. Chair, but I don't think it was appropriate at the time. So that's what I wanted to say as well. The other point that I want to make, and Les, you've made your points, and sometimes you've hit that table pretty hard, and that does remind me in the past as well.
Did I?
and so be it. The question now I want to turn, if that's okay, through the chair, is to our transport manager, Mr. Martin Parks. Is that fine? Martin, thanks for taking up, and I hope you're wearing your suit, and it's protecting you a little. But look, just take your mind back, Martin, when I was involved with you quite a number of times in regards to going out and consultating with the public, also the shop owners, etc. And I do remember it very well. I was concerned at that time in regards to the 2 lanes, taking some of that away and running that back into 1 lane. And I did state to you at the time, is this going to affect the flow? And your answer to me at that time, no, it won't. And second thing is that the crossing will actually improve it as well. My concern now is that in my eyes, and I listen to the public as well, and not only Les but many others that have phone called us many times, and they're in the same predicament as Les. It's the stage of it hasn't worked. Number 2 question is, what are we going to do? How we're going to go about it? I know the safety aspect was there with you, and it came time after time, but I don't think we certainly at that time gave the public what they required. Can you help us out, Martin?
I think, Councillor Granger, the most appropriate opportunity for Martin to respond is when the item comes up. There's an item receiving this petition. So if Martin can consider the questions, and at the time of the item when it does come up, he will answer it then.
Okay, just may I make one point then. Sure. In that case, and thanks for that, and I can understand that. Therefore, if it's okay through you, Mr. Chair, I know we're jumping the gun a bit, let's bring this item set up at the bottom of the list in the business. Let's bring it forward, and I'll tell you why it's forward. things are pretty hot at the moment, and I think with the public being here, let's bring it forward. Let's, you know, see if we can iron this out, and certainly give the public the opportunity and chance to listen to what our staff have to say. So if that could be done in regards to the change of order of business, I think that would be appreciated, not by ourselves, but the people that are here as well.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Granger. That does make sense, because the item of business before that is transportation projects, which would probably take at least half an hour. So it would be helpful while the supporters are here to bring that item forward. So it's moved by Councillor Granger, seconded by Councillor Clout. We'll change of order of business to hear DC6 before DC7. I'll put that, all those in favour. Against, that's carried. So leaders and supporters, if you're happy to wait until that item comes up, we've got a few minutes to confirm prior to that item of general business or item business to come up. But firstly, any other questions from members to Mr. Wallen? If not, thank you again, and we look forward to the debate. Next up, we have a late request from Greater Tauranga regarding public transport. Given that it's quite a topical issue at the moment, I've accepted the request, and so I think we have, do we have James Hughes? James, oh, there you are. James, would you like to come up and introduce any other people that might be supporting you in your submission? If we can keep it reasonably brief, we've got a fair bit amount of business to attend to this afternoon. Thank you, James. And welcome, James.
Afternoon, everyone. My name's James Hughes. I've got some other people from Greater Tauranga here as well. I think, just to clarify, is Carol Gordon speaking separately, or is she part of this? Okay. So, and Heidi is looking to speak as well. I'm just going to be very brief. I wanted to remind people and restate the case around the need for a bus lane on the Bayfair to Bay Park link connecting onto Hewlett's Road. And I know we've spoken about that, and there was a lot of support from yourself and others, and we don't know where that has landed. And given that the B2B project is being constructed at the moment, as was mentioned by others earlier, the buses sit in traffic with everyone else, and we think now's the ideal opportunity to connect a bus lane along past the B2B onto Hewlett's Road, and the infrastructure is already there. So just wanting to restate that very briefly as what we think is near the top of the priorities and as an easy win. We did present a couple of options for that, and I don't have the slides with me, but if people are interested, I think it's something that could go forward quite quickly. The only other comment I would want to make in that regard is that, and I've raised this with a few people, is that probably twice a week we see car transporters parked in the bus lane on Hewlett's Road, unloading their cars and blocking cyclists and the buses right at the start of the Hewlett's Road bus lane. And I thought it was a police issue, so I called the police, and they said, yes, we'll look into that. And I called them 4 times and subsequent calls, and they said, oh no, it's actually a parking issue. You need to talk to Tauranga City Council, and it's actually a state highway. So I don't know whose the responsibility is, but it would be great if some action could be taken there with those. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'll pass over to Carol or Heidi and take any questions if there are.
We have Representative Rob Campbell from NZTA, who's going to respond to the issue around the bus on the bus lane.
Great.
Actually, the bus lane, I'm sorry, because I wasn't aware you were coming. I haven't had a briefing on that. I'm standing aside. I apologise, I can't answer that one. But what I can say is, in terms of the transporters parking in the bus lanes, we have been ringing a number of those parties, having a conversation with them. Most of the, well, actually, all the ones we've spoken to so far, and the ones we're aware of, have been very positive and have actually rearranged their operations to park their transporters in other locations. So just to say, there is something being done in the, not so much the enforcement space, just that communication and explaining the issues. That's been a positive reception. I'm not saying it's perfect, but that's something that is ongoing.
Is there anything happening with thinking around the bus lane connecting onto Hewlett's that
Through B2B.
I'm sorry, I don't have that
You don't
with me,
know?
I'm afraid. I'd love to be able to give you an update. I don't have it. We can provide some information later.
I think probably through the chair, it's useful if people are coming to speak about topics, if you advise us beforehand, because then we can make sure the right person, so that's an NZTA issue, we can make sure that the information, like we have been advised of other things and they've been communicated to NZTA so they can respond today.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
Thank you.
James put this on sleep for me and now I don't know how to get it off sleep. There it is. Just before I start, I just want to say that 3 months ago or even longer I came in and we had a big group of people in the gallery and a lot of them were elderly, and I wrote a letter afterwards to say how bad the sound was, that it's very, very difficult for people in the gallery who come all the way here to participate in your meetings to hear, and nothing has been done. So again, these wonderful people have come in and we can't hear. So last time those doors were open and we were all the way to the back, can't hear folks. You folks can hear really beautifully around here. Just put a couple of speakers in. It's a very small thing to ask and it won't cost you more than a couple of $1,000s, and we would really appreciate it as members of the public.
On that, the arrangements to rectify that are underway. There's a new system being implemented within the next month.
Wonderful, thank you. Nice. Okay, so I have come in to just give a little bit of an insight into the Arataki corridor study as a stakeholder to kind of show some of the big flaws in our system at the moment that we can see. So I just want to run you through. I'm only going to take, I've just written this out. It's going to take about 3 minutes just to, from my perspective. So the corridor study is a project going on in Arataki area to increase the use of buses in active transport. This is in response to the Bayfeder Bay Park project disruption, which is causing traffic congestion through the area due to the works. I've been part of the stakeholder group involved in the initial design for the project, and here's what I have learned about the flaws in our process as I'm watching this project roll out. Firstly, the stakeholder engagement was good. The diversity and representation was good. There were around 20 people, cycle advocates, retirement village representatives, local iwi. We were presented with a fairly advanced plan concept, which we were to engage on. At this point, however, the limitations in our part of the engagement became apparent. It was clear that the transport planners had already had clear views on where the cycle route would go and where the buses would go, and that our part of the process was either to affirm their current ideas or to adjust them slightly to reflect community viewpoints. What was also missing at this stage of the engagement was a good overview of the big picture as the future plan. Where are all the buses coming from, and what does this look like for Links Ave? Why are they being redirected down into this community, and what are the options? What happens after the Bayfeder Bay Park? Is there a bus lane going into that project to take some of the express buses away from our local community? So we contributed all we could, and overall we were happy that at least the children's safety and active transport was being prioritised, and that there would be better pathways and crossings for mobility scooters and pedestrians. In late January, I went down Links Ave to find the bus lanes had been put in during the last week of the school holidays. Suddenly, 1 week before school starts, there are now 3 lanes instead of 2 down Links Ave, and no space at all for cycles. Neither the shared path or the crossing, none of the safety measures for active transport have been done yet. This was due to pressure from Regional Council to get the bus lanes in before the launch of the new PT blueprint. On Monday, the day before school started, there were still cars parked in the bus lanes. There were some pulled right across the footpath. There were rubbish trucks all over the bus lane trying to pick up rubbish during peak hour. The next day, all the school kids showed up, and they are all now squashed onto the footpath with the pedestrians, as there is no longer a place for them to ride down the road. At that time, there was no solid implementation plan for the shared path for cyclists and for the crossing at Mount Intermediate. We have engaged with the TC Transport team and they have been really proactive in trying to fix things. Now there is a new implementation manager and a comms person, but they only came on in the project 2 weeks ago and have been handed an impossible task. And this all has the ability to turn into a Greerton Road debacle unless we kind of get this right at the start. I believe we need to implement projects in a far better way with a huge focus on communication, with a reference to an overall plan. We need to put appropriate amounts of effort into both engagement and communication at every stage in the process. Please resource your staff to enable this to happen. They need comms people and PR people, not just transport planners, to try and make this happen, because they're not comms people and they're not PR people. And our community get confused, and so do the TCC staff, elected members, because we can't see what the overall plan is than what's being trying to be achieved. We need an integrative cross-agency plan for multimodal network in Tauranga. We understand UFTI is meant to be developing this, but we need to rapidly assess the current projects to make sure that we're not spending good money after bad in the meantime. Over the long term, the cost of investing in communications, public relations, and the development of a city-wide plan will be far less than the cost of getting things wrong and redoing things when we get things wrong. Yes, these are difficult and controversial projects in many cases, but we can't continue with the risk-averse, half-cooked approaches that we have at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Heidi. Any questions for Heidi? Councillor Cloud.
Thank you, Heidi. Can you conceive of a solution to the problem about accommodating cyclists alongside the accommodating bus lanes? Because there's only so much width within the road corridor. Any ideas that you want to share with us? Yes,
on Links Ave, for example, in the Arataki project, all we need is a shared path, and that's part of the project, because these are all school kids. So we just need a wide shared path so people with buggies and bikes and everybody can use that. So it's completely achievable on that street, but it's just it's part of the project. It's the implementation and the rollout of that project, and the community hasn't got that at the same time as the rest of it's been taken away. So different solutions for different areas. I certainly believe that with the evolution of e-bikes and different modes of fast scooters and things, that you can't expect that we do need those highways, those e-bike corridors that will mean that that kind of fast transport can happen. But shared pathways are really, really great around school zones. Yep.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just a comment rather more than a question, if I can. On our website under projects, under the Arataki projects, there's a whole list of what we've got to what the next steps are, and it does say that we've got coming up is the off-road bike path through Arataki Park and the bike facilities through the Links Ave area, and council will prepare a detailed design of the separated bike lanes on Gulf Road and Granada Street. So there's lots of work happening, but we can catch up with Greater Tauranga and your group to make sure that that detailed design work incorporates your views.
It's absolutely happening, and it is a really good plan. It's not that we're saying that the plan isn't great, it's just that we need to look at the communications and the PR around this. Like, this should be an exciting project, because it is. It's going to be really great for our community. But if we don't tell the community that and give them the idea of when all this is happening and how, it ends in anger. So that's the piece that I wanted to...
Thank you, Heidi. We have a comment from Christine Jones regarding the way forward.
So, through the Chair, just in the absence of the Chief Executive, I do understand... Oh, sorry. Just in the absence of the Chief Executive, I understand that he is looking at the issue of community engagement and communications. He's just trying to get a stock take in his own mind of how we do things, and certainly there have been discussions amongst the executive team and also with the elected members about the importance of community engagement going forward, particularly around transport and urban form, and I think he's still working through that process. So it is acknowledged by him, and it's one of the areas he is looking at, but I don't know the timing of that at this point.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Heidi. There's no more questions. So we've just finally got Carol Gordon. Well, welcome, Carol. If you can, keep it fairly concise. We've been Yep, we've been over an hour now in the public forum and we have got general business to conduct. Thank you, Carol.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to acknowledge that I'm not formally representing Greater Tauranga. I'm representing myself today, even though I collaborate and I'm part of that greater group. My issue today is that our public transport system is a systemic failure. Why? Because we need to acknowledge it, similar to the other presenters. Why? Because vulnerable people were abandoned. Despite several years of collaborative planning between NZTA, Tauranga City Council, Western Bay Council, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, numerous consultancy reports, international research, national guidelines, new government policy statements, smart growth processes, and voluntary input from informed and committed citizens, our vulnerable young and old were abandoned and their safety compromised at the rollout of the new transport system, public transport system. Elder users are reliant on public transport. I have with me today 90-year-olds. 90-year-olds who are dependent on the buses, who were left for hours in the heat where buses didn't come. Now, I know you didn't design the totality of the routes or hold the contract, but you were part and parcel of the decision-making and the blueprint, Tauranga blueprint processes and budgets and the systems that engaged. And so the timeliness of infrastructure development didn't happen. These people were stranded and unable to manage their lives or undertake voluntary work. They and their families have become highly distressed and distrustful. Now, we've heard that theme today. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to be compromised and I am going to be brief just because I'm the last person. Thank you. So let's recognise that all parties are responsible for the outcome caused by many facets of systemic failure. Tauranga City has, in my view, failed to invest in its older residents and failed to provide timely and appropriate infrastructure. To illustrate, we have an age-friendly strategy that sits in a drawer. And yet look at the cover. 10 years ago, we were seeking to have the transport systems accommodate for people of today and tomorrow. Today, I'm asking Tauranga City to stand up and apologise for their part in the transport fiasco. Most people know that TCC is a partner in the transport planning process and has infrastructure responsibilities that were not adequately underway at the time of the new bus scheduling. There are just so many issues. Political posturing now is possibly choking an ability to see solutions for the future. And I've been heard to say a number of times in the last couple of weeks, I'm tired of standing up here and advocating for older people in our city. I'm tired of it. I shouldn't have to do it anymore. And we're not yet on the page. The big picture, the urgent challenge, is our national and local capacity to undertake an integrated response to 3 global megatrends. And the world is full of good information about it. And they are climate change and carbon reduction, population ageing, and the 4th industrial revolution and the digitalisation of everything. Transport embodies all of those issues. All are part of a new transport paradigm. As a social scientist, I've undertaken research for smart growth in the Bay of Plenty Regional Council and presented submissions in this council on these issues and their extreme relevance for age-friendly urban planning and transport policy matters. I've done it for years. However, we have no sub-regional or regional working group addressing a framework for a transport vision for tomorrow that starts today. We have a plan of delivery for now, but not a vision that takes us forward in a digital and climate change world full of older people. I wish to commend the city's urban strategy. It's an excellent document, and I wish to commend all those who worked on it and brought that to fruition, because it is most helpful in guiding the growth and development of livable communities. Today I'm asking for respect. Respect for nearly one third of our citizens. I've sought this for nearly 20 years, here now and longer, in regard to other platforms. Here is a map. Here we are. A map showing the mesh block density of our Western Bay of Plenty, our city. Now those circles show pink and red, and the red circles are people over 70 years of age in our community. I want them considered and respected. That's based on the census of 2013 showing 65 plus. Now advancing 5 years, they're 70 years. Are they going to wait till they are 75 and more dependent on the bus system than today? Or are they safely going to be able to go about their lives in their local urban centre? Most of you who have been in transport meetings have heard me talk about automated shuttles. The day of the big yellow bus I ask you to consider is actually gone. Again, we're not addressing the reality of our people. Some people have those places have over 70% over 70 years now, many of whom no longer have faith that they can age in place. The failure in urban development is evidenced in the retreat to retirement villages, sanctuaries for the aged. Elders are being silenced by structural ageism. I'm doing a piece of work at the moment for the Regional Council on engaging older people and transport issues. So I've brought with me today some 90-year-olds and also Amber, who is a student, an intern student working with me on data gathering. And they're all passionate. And as a young person, Amber is passionate, and she's got so much to say about the material that she's reading that is within the research work that we're collating. Amber, have you got one sentence? Only one?
Welcome, Amber. You have one sentence.
I have one sentence. I just want to know if any of the council members are planning to live for a long time.
We all wish that.
You're going to need these services. Yeah.
Thank you, Carol and Amber. It's a pleasure having you here.
So I wish, in conclusion, to ask you to understand the megatrends, really take it on board that we're dealing with a complexity that will produce our solutions. The megatrends are not going away, and you as members carry the governance responsibility. I just want to finish off by saying 76% of the people that we have interviewed so far use a car, 22% use public transport, and 2% are reliant on family and friends. They have said, these are only indications, this is not reporting, buses don't go where people need to go. We need shelters, seating, crossings, better signs, and electronic timetables. Bus-dependent people can't go and do their voluntary work. Several have said, I can't go now to feed my dementia friend their lunch. We won't talk about what happens if they don't. And they have said local